August 1943, Western Germany. A low, throaty rumble rolls across the airfield. The mechanics look up from their work, shielding their eyes from the midday sun. At first, they think it's just another bomber raid, but the shape approaching from the horizon is different. It isn't dropping bombs, it's landing. The huge shadow of a Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress stretches across the runway as the captured bomber eases down on German soil. Its olive-drab skin is scarred, its engines coughing smoke. On the fuselage, the white star and bar of the U.S. Air Forces is hastily painted over with the black cross of the Reich. As the propellers spin down, Luftwaffe officers and engineers crowd closer. They've heard about this machine for months, the Flying Fortress. They've seen their fighters shredded by its defensive fire, but few have ever stood this close to one. The size alone is shocking. It towers over the German bombers parked nearby. A captain murmurs, "Wir Motoren und überall Geschütze," 4 engines and guns everywhere. Inside, the air still smells of cordite and hydraulic oil. Torn flak jackets hang from seats. Blood stains mark the floor where American airmen once fought to keep her flying. The instrument panel is a sea of dials and gauges, more than twice what most German bombers carry. A senior Luftwaffe engineer walks the length of the fuselage slowly, running his hand along the gun mounts. Nose, top turret, waist, tail. 13 50-caliber machine guns, interlocking arcs of fire. A flying fortress in every sense. No German plane has ever been built like this. In that moment, the officers understand. This is not just a bomber. It's a weapon of industrial power, and it has changed the air war. The fortress has landed in enemy hands, but its secrets are only beginning to unfold. Before we continue, if you love stories that bring World War II to life, from the battlefront to the war room, consider subscribing. Your support helps us tell these forgotten stories with the respect they deserve. 1935, Seattle, Washington. Rain drizzles over the factory floor as engineers at Boeing unveil a machine unlike anything the world has ever seen. 4 massive radial engines, a sleek fuselage, and a promise written in metal. The bomber of the future. They call it the Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress. The press gives it that name after spotting the forests of machine guns bristling from every angle. Its purpose is clear. It isn't meant to sneak through enemy defenses. It's built to fly straight through them. By the time America enters the war, the B-17 has evolved into a steel giant. With a 103-foot wingspan, 13 heavy .50 caliber machine guns, self-sealing fuel tanks, and thick armor, it's built to survive. And just as important, it can fly at high altitudes where most fighters struggle to reach. The idea is bold, terrifyingly bold. Instead of night raids like the British, the United States Army Air Forces plans to bomb Germany in daylight. Precision attacks. Bridges, factories, rail lines, no hiding in the dark. They'll come in clear view in tight formations, each bomber's guns covering the next. On training fields across the U.S., young crews learn to trust the fortress. Pilots are taught to hold steady under fire. Gunners drill endlessly, swinging twin Brownings in arcs that will one day cut through enemy fighters. Navigators learn to plot courses over enemy territory with nothing but stars and steel nerves. A sergeant's diary reads, "They told us this bird can take a beating and keep flying. I hope to God they're right." The fortress isn't just a plane. It's a statement of industrial might, of American confidence, of a nation preparing to bring war to the heart of the Reich. And in the skies over Europe, its legend is about to be written in smoke and fire. Spring 1943, northern France. The sirens wail. Luftwaffe pilots sprint across the tarmac toward their sleek, camouflaged fighters. In the control tower, an officer yells coordinates over a crackling radio. A formation of bombers has crossed the channel. They're coming in fast, and they're not alone. The Luftwaffe has ruled these skies for years. Their fighters, Messerschmitt Bf-109 and Focke-Wulf Fw-190, are nimble predators designed to slice through bomber formations. For German pilots, intercepting Allied aircraft has become routine. But this time, the targets aren't lumbering British night bombers. They're fortresses. A squadron of Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress aircraft, flying tight, disciplined formations, climbs through the haze. Their engines roar like a storm front rolling over the countryside. The sun glints off their silver bellies. German pilots are used to diving in, firing a burst and peeling away. But as they approach the fortress wall, something changes. Tracer fire erupts from the bombers, not from a single gun, but from everywhere. Nose, tail, top, sides. A deadly web of .50 caliber rounds. One Bf-109 is hit before it even gets within range, its wing shearing off as it tumbles earthward, trailing smoke. In the cockpit of an FW-190, Oberleutnant Hans Mueller jerks his control stick and dives beneath the formation, heart-hammering. "It's like flying into a porcupine," he later writes. The Luftwaffe begins to realize this isn't just another bombing campaign. It's industrial warfare in the air. American bombers fly higher, farther, and fight harder than anything they've seen. For every fortress downed, more keep coming. The hunters of the Reich are about to face prey that shoots back and shoots hard. July 1943, above the Ruhr Valley. The sky is alive with sound. Four-engine bombers drone in unison, a low mechanical growl that fills the air like distant thunder. Dozens of Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress aircraft fly in tight combat box formations, their wings almost brushing. Sunlight flashes across spinning propellers. Below them lies the industrial heart of Germany, steelworks, refineries, rail hubs. The target, cripple the Reich's war machine. Inside one fortress, sweat drips down the navigator's face despite the freezing altitude. At 25,000 feet, the air outside is 20 degrees below zero. Oxygen masks hiss with every breath. In the waist section, two gunners in heavy sheepskin jackets scan the sky through frosted plexiglass windows. Every man knows what's coming. Bandits 12 o'clock high. Black specks appear against the sun. Messerschmitt Bf-109 and Focke-Wulf FW-190 fighters, closing fast. The first bursts of German cannon fire streak through the formation. One fortress shudders, smoke pouring from its number 3 engine. But the bombers hold the line. Formation is their armor. Each gunner squeezes the trigger, sending streams of tracers arcing through the sky. The air becomes chaos. Shell casings clatter across metal floors. Frostbite burns fingers. The waist gunner screams coordinates over the intercom. Tail gunners shout out kills. The smell of burned gunpowder mixes with cold oil and fear. A B-17 takes a hit to its wing root, flames like the fuselage. Two men bail out, tiny figures tumbling into the void. But the rest press on. Bomb bay doors open. Dozens of bombs fall in perfect lines, vanishing into the smoke below. From the ground, German soldiers watch the black rain descend. Sirens wail, buildings shake. The Reich's industrial empire is under siege from the sky. This is daylight bombing, brutal, direct, unforgiving. And today, a single fortress will not return home, but it won't be destroyed either. It will be captured. If you're immersed in this story so far, make sure to hit subscribe. Each week, we uncover real wartime moments just like this, told through the eyes of those who lived them. July 30, 1943, northern France. The bomber shudders like a wounded animal. A 20mm shell has ripped through the starboard wing, knocking out engine number 4. Inside the Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress, alarms scream in the cockpit. The co-pilot fights the controls as the aircraft drifts out of formation, losing altitude fast. "Feather 4, feather 4," the pilot yells, hands slick with sweat inside his gloves. The fortress is alone now, vulnerable. Messerschmitt Bf-109 fighters swoop in like vultures, hammering its flanks with cannon fire. The waist gunners return fire, tracers arcing through the cold sky. One German fighter explodes in a flash of orange flame, but there are more. The radio operator leans over his set. "Mayday, mayday, Fortress 909 going down." Hydraulics fail. The bomb bay doors hang twisted and useless. Oxygen lines snap. Frosted windows shatter under the impact of rounds. In the top turret, the gunner slumps forward, blood soaking his jacket. They're too far from England to make it home, but too high to bail out yet. The pilot makes the only choice left, try for a crash landing in occupied territory. Below, German anti-aircraft crews watch the B-17 descend, its right wing trailing a long, greasy ribbon of smoke. At first, they prepare to fire again. Then they notice the landing gear struggling down. The fortress isn't attacking, it's surrendering to gravity. It hits a flat field near Abbeville with a bone-cracking impact. One wing snaps off, dirt erupts in a black plume, but the fuselage holds. Miraculously, the cockpit remains intact. Local Wehrmacht troops surround the wreck before the surviving crew can flee. For the first time, a nearly intact flying fortress lies in enemy hands. The Luftwaffe doesn't destroy it, they cradle it like treasure. Engineers are already en route. Evening, northern France. The field is quiet now, except for the ticking sound of cooling metal. The captured Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress sits at a crooked angle, its landing gear half buried in churned mud. Smoke drifts from the shattered starboard wing. Around it, armed Wehrmacht soldiers move cautiously, unsure whether the bomber is still dangerous. Inside the fuselage, the aftermath is brutal. Blood stains the floor beneath the top turret. A parachute lies half unfolded across the radio table. The intercom headset still hangs from its hook, swaying gently in the evening breeze. The pilot and 3 surviving crew members are dragged out at gunpoint. Exhausted and frostbitten, they barely resist. German medics arrive quickly, not out of mercy, but to keep the prisoners alive for interrogation. Nearby, an officer radios Luftwaffe command. "Wir haben eine Festung, fast intact. We have a fortress, almost intact." As night falls, trucks arrive from the nearest Luftwaffe base. Floodlights bathe the bomber in harsh white. German mechanics crawl over the fuselage, tracing bullet paths, counting gun ports. For years, the Reich has faced these aircraft. Now they finally have one they can touch. A sergeant runs his hand along the ball turret, a perfectly intact sphere of glass and steel. "Why ein Igel?" he mutters, like a hedgehog, bristling with guns. Documents are found in the cockpit. Navigation charts, flight logs, radio frequencies. A leather-bound flight diary with the words, "No glory without guts," scrawled across the cover. A single flare streaks upward, signaling the recovery team. The bomber will be dismantled, loaded onto trucks, and sent deep into Germany. For the American crew, captivity begins. For the Luftwaffe, a new chapter in the air war is about to unfold. A rare chance to dissect their deadliest enemy. Berlin, Luftwaffe High Command. A coded transmission arrives just after midnight. The message is simple, urgent, and unmistakable. A Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress has been captured nearly intact in northern France. Within hours, orders cascade through the Luftwaffe chain of command. Capture everything. Preserve the aircraft, do not destroy. In the war rooms of the Luftwaffe, senior officers gather around a large operations table. On it sits a rough field report, already translated. Minimal structural damage, one wing destroyed, engines recoverable, gun mounts intact. For men who have spent years trying to shoot these planes down, the opportunity is priceless. A colonel leans over the report and taps the page. This is what's been costing us so many pilots," he growls. "Now we'll see what makes it tick." Special recovery units are assembled overnight. They bring flatbed trucks, cranes, engineers, and armed guards. Their task: transport the bomber safely through occupied France, across the Rhine, and into the heart of the Reich. Meanwhile, Luftwaffe engineers prepare a secure hangar at a test base, far from Allied bombers, where the fortress will be examined in secrecy. A classified file is opened. A code name is assigned. The captured machine will become a subject of technical obsession. Propaganda officials are quietly informed but ordered to keep the find secret for now. This isn't a trophy for newspapers. It's a weapon to be studied, copied, and if possible, turned against its creators. As dawn breaks over the wreck site, the first convoy begins rolling. Soldiers clear villages along the route, covering the strange cargo under tarps. Curious locals watch as the convoy rumbles past, not knowing they're witnessing a turning point in the air war. For Berlin, this is no ordinary prize. It's a fortress, and they intend to unlock its secrets. August 1943, a Luftwaffe testing base near Richlin, Germany. The massive hangar doors grind open, revealing the battered but formidable silhouette of the Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress. Floodlights snap on, illuminating every dent, every bullet hole, every gun barrel. Around the plane, teams of Luftwaffe mechanics and engineers in gray coveralls gather like surgeons around a patient. For weeks, these men have fought the fortress in the air. Now, for the first time, they can study one up close. The nose section comes off first. German hands trace the wiring, hydraulic lines, oxygen systems. One engineer kneels beneath the cockpit, muttering, "Das ist verrückt, so complex." This is insane, so complex. They measure every gun mount, every sighting station. They examine the ball turret, a perfect sphere of glass and steel suspended beneath the belly. No German bomber carries anything like it. Inside the fuselage, they find armored bulkheads, thicker than on most German aircraft, and rows of ammo boxes feeding the hungry Brownings. Another team focuses on the engines. The big Wright Cyclone power plants are unlike the air-cooled engines in most Luftwaffe bombers. One mechanic leans in, impressed. It can take a beating and still fly. In a nearby lab, flight manuals, crew notes, and cockpit labels are translated. German pilots practice reading the English markings: boost, FLAPS, oxygen. At a briefing table, engineers draw diagrams late into the night. The fortress isn't just tough, it's built to fight its way through hell and keep going. It's not elegant like a German design. It's brute force wrapped in aluminum. One officer sums it up quietly. It's not just a plane, it's a factory in the sky. The Luftwaffe has gained access to a masterpiece of American industrial warfare. And soon they won't just study it, they'll fly it. The hangar is silent except for the distant hum of generators. The Luftwaffe engineers have gone home for the night, but the Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress remains, a wounded giant resting in the dim light. Inside the fuselage, the air is stale. It still smells faintly of oil, burned gunpowder, and something heavier, blood. The Americans are gone, but their presence lingers like a shadow. A German technician climbs into the radio compartment. He runs a gloved hand over the battered table. There's a bullet lodged in the wood. Next to it lies a cracked headset, still coiled neatly. On the wall, written in pencil, is a name: Smitty, Kansas. In the waist section, they find more fragments of a human story. A torn leather flight jacket, a small pack of chewing gum, a folded photograph of a young woman smiling on a porch, her hair pinned back just so, a blood-stained Bible tucked into the corner of a seat. An officer orders everything gathered. "Send these to intelligence," he mutters, but one mechanic hesitates, staring at the photograph. For a moment, the war feels closer, more human. The men who flew this machine were not faceless enemies. They were young, like the pilots who shot at them. A bullet hole punches through the metal just inches from the navigator's station, a reminder of how close death came. The cockpit still bears the impact scars from flak, and on the pilot's yoke a strip of tape reads, "Keep her flying." The Germans are studying a machine, but they've also inherited its ghosts. Each piece of personal evidence is logged and packed away. The bomber will soon fly again, but with different men at the controls. For the Luftwaffe, it's no longer just a trophy. It's a captured heartbeat of the enemy. Late August 1943, Luftwaffe Test Center, Richlin. The early morning mist clings to the airfield as a group of German pilots gather beside the captured Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress. They circle it with quiet, professional curiosity. These aren't ordinary pilots, they're test veterans, the best in the Reich. Their job, to take the enemy's weapon into the sky and bring back its secrets. The lead pilot, Hauptmann Wolfgang Wolf Werner, climbs the ladder into the cockpit. He served on Eastern Front bombers, but he's never sat inside anything this big. He runs his hands across the throttle quadrant, the bank of instruments, gauges stretching from knee to overhead. "It's like flying a locomotive," he mutters. Ground crews step back as the four Wright Cyclone engines roar to life, one by one. The sound is unlike any German bomber, deeper, heavier. The ground trembles as the Fortress shakes itself awake. Black smoke billows from the exhaust stacks before clearing into a steady growl. Werner and his co-pilot ease the throttles forward. The bomber lurches down the runway, accelerating slower than a German twin engine but with unstoppable force. At 110 miles per hour, the tail lifts. Moments later, this American machine, painted now with German crosses, leaves the ground under Luftwaffe control. Inside the cockpit, the yoke is heavy but steady. The big bomber doesn't dance through the air like a fighter. It pushes forward like it owns the sky. In the waist section, German gunners test the mounts, swinging the .50 caliber guns through their arcs. The intercom system crackles with clipped German voices layered over English labels. Werner banks the Fortress over the airfield. "It flies like it was built to take punishment," he says over the radio. Slow but solid. On the ground, officers watch in silence. For the first time, a Luftwaffe pilot commands the enemy's most feared bomber. And what they learn in the next hours will change how they fight it. August 1943, 15,000 feet over northern Germany. The captured Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress cuts through the thin cloud layer like a steel spearhead. In the waist compartment, two Luftwaffe test gunners, both veterans of countless bomber interceptions, brace behind the .50 caliber Brownings. They've faced this firepower before, but never from the inside. "Lows," the flight engineer shouts over the intercom. "Test firing." The waist gunner squeezes the trigger. The twin Brownings erupt with a deafening, hammering roar. Hot shell casings spill across the metal floor, clinking like coins on steel. The vibration runs through the fuselage, not a weak rattle, but a deep, confident thrum. The Germans are stunned. These guns fire longer and cleaner than their own defensive weapons. The ammunition belts feed smoothly. The recoil is brutal but controllable. "Mein Gott," the gunner whispers. "It's a fortress with teeth." They test every position. Nose, tail, ball turret, top turret. 13 guns covering every angle like a web of fire. No matter where an attacking fighter comes from, at least 2 guns can lock on. Hauptmann Wolfgang Werner pushes the bomber into a slow turn as the gunners sweep the sky. From the tail, another burst of .50 caliber fire rips into the empty air, leaving shimmering heat trails. The Luftwaffe engineers aboard scribble notes furiously. Effective arcs, ammunition feed reliability, blind spots, or rather, the lack of them. On the ground, German fighter pilots will later hear these reports. They'll learn what every attacking pilot has felt in his gut. Approaching a B-17 isn't just dangerous. It's suicide if you get it wrong. As Werner brings the bomber down for landing, the gun crews exchange glances. This aircraft doesn't rely on escorts to survive. It is its own fortress. One of them mutters under his breath, "No wonder we lose so many planes." Early September 1943, Richlin Test Center. The morning sun burns away the mist as two aircraft line up on the runway. One is the captured Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress. The other, sleek, lethal, fast, is the Focke-Wulf FW-190, the pride of German fighter design. Today isn't combat. It's a hunt, carefully staged, meticulously timed. Luftwaffe tacticians want to know how their fighters can survive a run against this fortress. Hauptmann Wolfgang Werner takes the controls of the B-17 once again. At his signal, both aircraft climb into the clear blue sky. Below, ground crews and officers wait with binoculars, notebooks, and cameras. The FW-190 swoops in from high 12 o'clock, the classic head-on attack used by German aces. In normal combat, this is where the fortress is most vulnerable. But as the fighter dives, the B-17's nose turret opens up. Streams of .50 caliber tracers streak straight into the path of the oncoming aircraft. "Chase," the FW-190 pilot yells, banking away hard. Even in a mock engagement, the sheer volume of fire forces him to break off early. Next, a low 6 o'clock approach. Tail gunners track the fighter almost effortlessly, locking onto it with overlapping arcs. Another burst of gunfire rattles through the sky. This time, the pilot barely escapes the kill zone. Then a diving attack from the beam, the most dangerous for Luftwaffe pilots. Twin waist guns hammer away, and the air around the fighter fills with burning tracer lines. On the ground, one observer lowers his binoculars slowly. "We're asking our boys to fly into a meat grinder," he mutters. The exercise continues for hours. Different approaches, different angles. Same result, heavy defensive fire dominates the fight. The fortress isn't invincible, but it forces attackers into deadly precision. One mistake means death. For the Luftwaffe, the lesson is clear. Be fast, be coordinated, and pray you're not the first one in. September 1943, Richlin. The hangar is alive with noise as Luftwaffe engineers swarm over the captured Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress. Not to repair it now, but to understand it. For weeks they've studied its firepower from the outside. Now they're dissecting its soul. A German test engineer climbs into the nose section and runs his hands along the framework. Unlike many German bombers, this compartment is armored, reinforced to take flak and cannon rounds. Mounted directly in front, twin .50 caliber Brownings on a powered turret. It's a gunner's dream, clear lines of fire, a stable platform, excellent visibility. Moving aft, the cockpit. It's crowded, yes, but organized with ruthless functionality. 4 engines, heavy controls, endless gauges. German pilots note something they've rarely seen in their own bombers: redundancy. Every major system, hydraulics, electrics, oxygen, has a backup. Behind the cockpit, the radio room. The equipment is advanced, more powerful than standard Luftwaffe sets. An engineer leans over the operator's chair and whispers, "They could coordinate entire formations with this." Then the belly turret, a marvel of engineering, compact, motorized, deadly. German bombers carry defensive guns, but nothing with this field of fire. "It's like putting a wasp under the belly," one technician remarks. Waist gun stations line both sides of the fuselage. Ammunition belts snake across the floor. The tail gunner's compartment is tight, armored, and lethal. No angle goes undefended. The Germans sketch diagrams, take measurements, calculate armor thickness, and traverse speed. The more they see, the more they realize the fortress isn't just about firepower, it's about survivability. If one engine dies, it keeps flying. If 2 engines die, it still limps home. If a gunner falls, another position covers the gap. One engineer finally sets down his clipboard and exhales. "This isn't just a bomber," he says. "It's an entire defensive system in the air." And soon this system will be dissected even deeper, from how it flies in formations to how it kills. Mid-September 1943, Richlin. The Luftwaffe officers gather in a briefing room, cigarette smoke curling through the stale air. On the table lies a massive map of Western Europe, England on one side, the industrial heart of Germany on the other. Little black bomber silhouettes mark previous raids. A captured Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress sits just outside in the hangar. But today, they're not studying the machine itself. They're studying how it fights as part of a swarm. A German intelligence officer points to a formation chart taken from American documents. Each fortress isn't alone, he explains. They fly in combat boxes, perfectly spaced, every gun covering another. They've analyzed gun arcs and flight patterns. From above, a B-17 formation looks like a jagged wall of steel. No matter where a fighter approaches, it flies into overlapping fields of .50 caliber fire. On a chalkboard, they sketch the classic American attack route. Daylight raids, high altitude, tight formations, relentless precision. No evasive weaving, no chaos. Just slow, steady advance like a moving fortress city. The Luftwaffe has long relied on speed and surprise. But against this, precision and mass, even veteran pilots are at a disadvantage. One engineer flips open a notebook. Each plane may carry 13 guns, but a group of 20 fortresses means over 250. Out on the tarmac, the captured bomber is positioned in mock formation with wooden silhouettes marking other aircraft. German fighter pilots walk through the exercise, approaching from different angles. Every path ends the same way, intersecting lines of fire. One officer mutters, "They don't need escorts to be dangerous. They are the escorts." The Luftwaffe realizes they aren't fighting individual planes. They're fighting an airborne phalanx. And that wall of steel is growing larger with every month. Late September 1943, Berlin. A stack of reports lands on the desk of a Luftwaffe intelligence officer. Each one tells the same story. Interceptor pilots are dying in alarming numbers when attacking Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress formations. Not a few, dozens. The defensive firepower is chewing through Germany's best. The Reich's propaganda machine tries to spin it. Posters and newspaper headlines speak of brave hunters bringing down the American bomber menace. But inside fighter bases from France to the Ruhr, the truth spreads fast. Pilots talk in hushed tones about the walls of fire, about comrades who never made it back. At a squadron briefing in northern Germany, a young pilot fidgets with his gloves. The officer at the front slams a pointer against a diagram of a B-17. Head-on attack only, fast, precise. If you hesitate, you're dead. Someone in the back whispers, "And if you don't hesitate." A quiet chuckle ripples through the room, not from humor but from nerves. The captured fortress at Luftwaffe test fields has shown the truth clearly. Every angle is dangerous. Every approach bleeds aircraft. Rumors spread to training units. Some pilots start calling the B, Der Fliegende Sarg, the flying coffin, not for its crew, but for the fighters that attack it. Meanwhile, the Reich's civilian population sees the other side. Daylight raids increase. Sirens wail. Cities burn. American bombers fly higher and stronger, escorted now by long-range fighters. The fortress has become more than a plane. It's a symbol of the Allies' industrial hammer, falling harder with each week. Luftwaffe psychologists note a growing fear among young recruits. They'll fly, of course. They'll obey orders. But they know, when the black dots appear overhead, survival isn't guaranteed. Propaganda can boost morale on paper. But in the cockpit, when tracers light up the sky, fear is real. October 1943, Luftwaffe headquarters. The mood is different now. Tense, tired, reports pile higher on desks, fuel shortages, lost aircraft, missing pilots. Every daylight raid by Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress formations seems to cost the Reich more than the last. In the ready rooms at fighter bases, frustration simmers like heat off the tarmac. Veteran pilots slam helmets onto tables. They know how to fight. They've fought on every front. But against the fortress wall, skill alone isn't enough. Oberleutnant Hans Müller, an ace with over 30 kills, leans over a map in the squadron hut. "We hit them head-on, we get shredded. We hit them from the tail, we lose half the staffel before we're in range," he growls. This isn't a battle, it's slaughter. The Luftwaffe is burning through experienced men faster than it can train new ones. Replacements arrive barely out of flight school, thrown into combat against heavily armed formations. Many don't last a week. Fuel is rationed. Maintenance crews work night after night under blackout conditions. Engines fail more often. Ammunition runs low. And the raids, they keep coming. United States Army Air Forces bombers fly in numbers the Reich can't match. In Berlin, High Command debates tactics. Some suggest massed fighter swarms. Others push for head-on attack waves. All know the truth: the enemy can replace losses. Germany can't. Back at Richlin, engineers are still flying the captured fortress, probing every weakness they can find. But it's like dissecting a tiger after the rest of the pack has already surrounded you. Knowledge isn't the problem. Numbers are. Each new raid drains resources and morale. Each failed interception drives home the same reality. The Luftwaffe is being forced into a war of attrition it cannot win. The fortress in the sky isn't just shooting down planes. It's grinding down the Luftwaffe's spirit. Late 1943, above the Reich. The sky over Germany no longer belongs to the Luftwaffe. It belongs to the bombers. Day after day, waves of Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress aircraft cross the border in broad daylight, engines thundering like rolling thunderheads. Below them, the cities and factories of the Reich brace for impact. Sirens wail in Frankfurt, in Essen, in Bremen. Civilians pour into shelters as black smoke from previous raids still drifts across the horizon. Anti-aircraft guns, the vaunted flak, open up with their sharp, rhythmic bark. Black puffs explode at 25,000 feet, but the fortresses keep coming. Luftwaffe interceptors scramble from every available airfield. Messerschmitt Bf-109 and Focke-Wulf FW-190 fighters roar into the cold air, climbing desperately to meet the threat. In the distance, the bomber stream stretches for miles. For the German pilots, the approach is terrifying. Head-on attacks are now doctrine, but doctrine doesn't stop bullets. The lead B-17s unleash coordinated bursts of .50 caliber fire, filling the sky with a storm of tracers. A single mistake means a smoking spiral into the fields below. Inside the bombers, the crews are just as tense. Oxygen masks hiss, guns chatter, and sweat freezes to skin. A waist gunner calls out, "Fighters, 9 o'clock." Another yells, "Tail, tail." The air is alive with death. Bomb bay doors open. Hundreds of bombs drop in unison, disappearing into cloud and smoke. Below, the ground shakes. A munitions plant vanishes under a rolling wave of fire. German civilians emerge hours later to streets torn apart. The sound of the fortresses fades, but the damage remains. Roofs gone. Rail lines twisted, smoke still rising. This isn't just an air raid anymore. It's a campaign, relentless, methodical, overwhelming. The Luftwaffe is forced to defend everywhere and can hold nowhere. The fortress in German hands at Richlin can reveal its secrets, but it can't stop the storm overhead. Winter 1943, northern Germany. From the ground, it looks like a storm front moving across the sky, a black, moving wall stretching for miles. But it's not weather. It's the bomber stream. Hundreds of Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress aircraft flying in perfect formation, engines thundering, a mechanical tide rolling toward the heart of the Reich. The concept is simple, devastating. Instead of scattered raids, the United States Army Air Forces now sends hundreds of bombers in tightly packed columns, wave after wave. Each fortress covers the next. Each gunner adds to an unbroken wall of defensive fire. For a German fighter to pierce that wall, it has to fly straight into a hurricane of lead. On a Luftwaffe observation post near Hanover, an officer lifts his field glasses. The horizon is crawling with dots. "Mein Gott," he whispers. "It doesn't end." The bomber stream is a product of American industry, vast, relentless, and growing. Even if the Luftwaffe downs 50 planes in a raid, hundreds more return the next day. The Reich is fighting not just aircraft, but production lines. Fighter groups scramble in waves, trying to break the stream apart. Messerschmitt Bf-109 units dive in from altitude. Focke-Wulf FW-190 pilots attack in tight packs. Some get through. Many don't. Inside the bomber stream, it's chaos and discipline fused together. Intercoms crackle. "Waist gunner, 6 o'clock. Tail clear. Keep formation tight." Smoke trails snake through the sky as aircraft on both sides fall. But the formation holds. It always holds. Luftwaffe High Command watches in frustration. Even with their captured fortress at Luftwaffe test centers, even with every tactic they devise, the problem remains the same. One fortress is powerful. 100 together are nearly unstoppable. The bomber stream isn't just a tactic. It's the embodiment of Allied industrial warfare, cold, calculated, and merciless. Winter 1943, Luftwaffe Fighter Command. Every week, more reports come in. Every week, the losses climb. The bomber streams of Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress aircraft are tearing through the Reich's defenses. If the Luftwaffe can't stop them, Germany's war machine will suffocate. So the fighter, armed as what it always does best, adapts. In briefing rooms across occupied Europe, squadron leaders gather around chalkboards covered in attack diagrams. Gone are the simple tail chases of early 1943. Now, the Luftwaffe turns to coordinated precision strikes. The first new tactic, head-on attack. Pilots dive straight toward the bomber formation at high speed, aiming to punch through the nose before gunners can track them. It's dangerous, almost suicidal, but it works better than trying to chew through the tail guns. Second, Zerstergruppen, heavy fighter units flying Messerschmitt Bf 110 and Messerschmitt Me 410, packed with cannons and rockets. These twin-engine aircraft hit hard, meant to rip open bomber formations in coordinated bursts. Third, Sturmgruppen, specialized assault units flying heavily armored Focke-Wulf FW 190 fighters. Their job isn't to dance with escorts. It's to smash into the bomber stream, close to point-blank range, and destroy as many fortresses as possible before bailing out of the kill zone. But the risks are staggering. Head-on runs require perfect timing. 1 second too early, you miss. 1 second too late, you die. Heavy fighters are easy prey for escorting fighters, and the Sturmgruppen, they bleed men at a terrifying rate. At test fields, Luftwaffe tacticians study their captured B-17, searching for gaps. Small weaknesses exist, blind spots beneath the nose, slow maneuvering at low altitude. But exploiting them in combat against hundreds of interlocking guns is another story. An ace pilot sums it up bitterly during a debriefing. We can kill them, yes, but they can kill us faster. The Luftwaffe has tactics, but the bombers have time and endless replacements. Early 1944, Richlin Test Center. The captured Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress now sits with a patched wing and fresh paint. Luftwaffe pilots have flown it dozens of times. Technicians have charted every inch of its frame, every angle of its guns, every weakness they can find. And now, those lessons are flowing to the front lines. In briefing rooms, Luftwaffe fighter leaders pass around newly printed diagrams, drawn from flight tests with the captured bomber. Arrows point to blind spots. Under the nose, beneath the engines, and directly below the tail, places where American gunners can't easily track. These become the attack windows. They teach new pilots how long it takes a fortress to roll out of a turn, how slow it bleeds speed when climbing, how the ball turret has a momentary delay when shifting targets. These aren't game-changing weaknesses, but in the deadly dance of the air war, fractions of a second can mean survival. Tacticians note another key detail. The bomber's intercom chatter can't cover all angles at once. A well-timed attack by multiple fighters can overwhelm gunner coordination. Luftwaffe squadrons are trained to attack in tight waves, splitting the fortress crew's attention. At a closed-door briefing, a major slams his fist on the table. "We've faced this beast blind," he says. "No more, now we know how it breathes." But even as these tactics spread, there's a grim reality behind the optimism. Every strategy requires more fighters, more fuel, and more trained pilots than Germany can spare. Each successful attack still costs lives. Werner, the test pilot who first flew the captured fortress, watches one of these briefings quietly. He knows the truth. Knowledge won't save them from numbers. The fortress's strengths outweigh its flaws, and every day more of them cross the channel. Winter 1944, Richlin. The hangar lights cast a pale glow over the captured Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress. German engineers walk its length again, clipboards in hand, studying a machine that has become both an enemy and an obsession. They've measured its armor, mapped its wiring, charted its performance. And one truth grows clearer with every inspection. This bomber is something the Reich cannot replicate. Not because it lacks the skill, but because it lacks the resources. The B-17 isn't a masterpiece of elegant design. It's a masterpiece of industrial power. Every piece, from the ball turret to the oxygen system, is mass-produced with precision and consistency. American factories can build them faster than the Luftwaffe can shoot them down. A German engineer runs his hand across the smooth, riveted skin of the wing. "We can make something like this," he says quietly, "but not 50 a day." German bombers like the Heinkel He-111 or Dornier Do-17 were designed for a different kind of war, fast strikes, not a sustained strategic air campaign. By contrast, the Fortress is built for endurance, for survival, for mass production. The Wright Cyclone engines impress the Germans most of all. Rugged, forgiving, easy to maintain, nothing like their own finely tuned but temperamental engines. One mechanic laughs bitterly. "Our engines need love, these need fuel." In design offices, Luftwaffe planners sketch ideas, dreaming of their own fortress bombers. But they know it's fantasy. The Reich doesn't have the aluminum, the manpower, or the time. What they envy most isn't the machine itself. It's the system behind it, the endless factories, the training pipelines, the supply lines that keep the sky filled with fortresses day after day. The Luftwaffe has captured a plane, but the Allies have built an empire in the air. Spring 1944, Germany. The bomber's shadow reaches the ground before the sound does. Civilians in the Ruhr look up as a formation of Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress aircraft sweeps overhead. The engines beat a steady rhythm, heavy, relentless, like the ticking of an approaching hammer. To the Luftwaffe, the fortress is a military threat. To the German people, it's something more, a symbol of inevitability. Every air raid warning, every distant rumble, every day spent underground cements the same message. The enemy can strike anywhere, anytime in daylight, and the Luftwaffe can't stop them. In frontline fighter bases, pilots don't need propaganda to understand the fear. They live it. A veteran ace describes his first head-on pass against a fortress formation. It's like charging into a burning barn. You see the flames. You go anyway. Young recruits hear the stories of planes torn apart in seconds, of comrades vanishing in walls of tracer fire. Many climb into their fighters already expecting not to return. For civilians, the psychological toll is just as deep. Bomb shelters fill every night. Families emerge after raids to find their homes flattened, their cities blackened with smoke. The steady arrival of bombers has become a kind of clockwork, the sound of war inching closer to the heart of Germany. Meanwhile, the captured B-17 at Richlin sits as both a trophy and a warning. Pilots train against it, engineers study it, strategists analyze it. But even here, under the controlled quiet of a test base, it radiates a quiet, crushing truth. This is the machine that brings the war home. The fortress doesn't just fight in the air. It lives in the minds of those who face it. Summer 1944, England. Rows of Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress aircraft sit on the tarmac, engines idling, wingtips lined up like soldiers. Pilots and crews climb aboard, strapping into cold steel and canvas. Oxygen masks hang ready, flak jackets are fastened, and mission briefings echo in their heads. Today isn't just another raid. It's part of something bigger, something called Operation Point Blank, a coordinated Allied campaign to break the Luftwaffe's back before the coming invasion of Western Europe. Point Blank's goal is brutal and simple: destroy Germany's ability to fight in the air. Hit aircraft factories, fuel refineries, engine works, and transportation lines. Not just harass them, cripple them. On the other side of the channel, Luftwaffe commanders know what's coming. They've seen the buildup, felt the pressure. Their captured fortress at Richlin has given them insight, yes, but not enough. No amount of intelligence can stop the weight of Allied industry. The bomber streams lift off in wave after wave, stretching across the sky. With them fly the long-range escorts, North American P-51 Mustang fighters, fast, sleek, deadly. The Luftwaffe's one advantage, catching bombers without cover, is vanishing. When the fortresses appear over Germany, they don't come alone anymore. Fighters meet fighters. The Luftwaffe bleeds. Inside one bomber, a waist gunner stares out the plexiglass window as contrails stretch endlessly behind them. "Feels like the whole damn sky's ours," he mutters. Below, aircraft factories burn. Engine plants are pounded to rubble. Every lost building means fewer German planes, fewer pilots trained, fewer chances to resist the Allied advance. Operation Point Blank isn't just a mission. It's a systematic dismantling of the Luftwaffe. The fortress at Richlin was supposed to help Germany fight back. But against the flood, it's like throwing sandbags against a rising river. Summer 1944, Germany. The sound arrives first, a low, rolling thunder that rattles windows and tightens throats. Civilians glance upward, soldiers grip their rifles, pilots run for their aircraft. The formations of Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress aircraft are coming again. And again, and again. Even after the Luftwaffe's most desperate counterattacks, even after entire bomber groups are hit by flak and fighters, the fortresses return the next day. For every bomber brought down, two more seem to appear. For every crew lost, another is ready. This is what total war looks like. At an airfield outside Berlin, Oberleutnant Hans Müller watches the contrails spread like chalk lines across the blue sky. He's survived dozens of interceptions, but now he can feel the shift. "They don't stop," he mutters. "They never stop." The Luftwaffe's fuel reserves are bleeding dry. Pilot training programs are gutted by the constant need for replacements. Flak batteries are firing day and night. Factories work at half capacity under constant bombardment. Even the propaganda officers are running out of slogans. At Richlin, the captured fortress stands in its hangar, scarred from test flights but still airworthy. Luftwaffe engineers once studied it with excitement. Now they walk past it in silence. They know its value as a prize has faded. The Reich no longer needs to understand the bomber. It needs a way to stop it. But there is none. The fortresses fly in endless streams, escorted by North American P-51 Mustang fighters. They darken the skies over Hamburg, Berlin, Munich, and beyond. Bomb craters fill with rainwater faster than repair crews can fill them. This is the power of an industrial giant unleashed. The Luftwaffe once ruled the air. Now it scrambles for survival beneath the shadow of an enemy it cannot match. The fortress doesn't retreat. The fortress doesn't rest. The fortress keeps coming. Autumn 1944, Germany. The Luftwaffe is no longer the proud force that once dominated Europe's skies. The fighter squadrons that roared over France, Britain, and the Eastern Front are now shadows, under-strength, under-fueled, undermanned. The endless streams of Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress aircraft have done what no single battle could. They've worn the Luftwaffe down to the bone. At a once bustling airfield in northwestern Germany, the sound of engines is thinner now. Fewer planes take off. Mechanics scavenge parts from wrecks to keep a handful of Messerschmitt Bf-109 and Focke-Wulf Fw-190 fighters flying. Pilots strap in knowing they're outnumbered 5, sometimes 10 to 1. A young flight leader stares at the mission board. Half the names beside his are crossed out, pilots lost in the last 2 weeks. Some never returned. Others parachuted into burning fields. There are no veterans left to teach the new recruits. Fuel shortages make training almost impossible. Maintenance crews run on exhaustion. Flak gunners fire without sleep. And above it all, the fortresses still come, their formation steady, their guns ready, their engines pounding like a war drum. Inside the bomber stream, American crews sense it too. The once deadly swarms of German fighters are smaller now. Interceptions come later, weaker, less coordinated. They're running out of fight, one waist gunner writes in his diary. At Richlin, the captured B-17 still sits in its hangar. It has been tested, diagrammed, flown, and picked apart. Once it gave the Luftwaffe hope that understanding the enemy might help them beat him. Now it's just a reminder of the war slipping through their fingers. The Luftwaffe isn't defeated in a single glorious battle. It's bled to death, raid after raid, day after day, under the shadow of the fortress in the sky. Winter 1944, Richlin Test Center. The hangar is cold. The captured Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress sits quietly, its olive-drab paint scarred and faded, German crosses still painted crudely over the American stars. Around it, the Luftwaffe test program is winding down. There are no more grand tactics to be found here. No miracle solutions. Only the quiet murmurs of pilots and engineers who have spent months dissecting the enemy's weapon. Hauptmann Wolfgang Werner, the first Luftwaffe pilot to fly the captured fortress, removes his gloves and rests a hand on the bomber's cold metal skin. He remembers the first flight, the weight of it, the sound of its engines, the power. In the small office beside the hangar, the final report is typed out line by line. It lists everything the Germans have learned. The B-17's engines are reliable under heavy damage. Its defensive guns overlap with brutal efficiency. Its structure absorbs punishment and keeps flying. Its formation tactics are nearly unbreakable without overwhelming numbers. At the bottom of the page, in neat German script, one line is added by hand. Wir haben nie etwas wie dieses gesehen. We have never seen anything like this. A few remaining test pilots gather near the wing, lighting cigarettes against the wind. One of them shakes his head. It's not just the plane, he mutters. It's the machine that builds the plane, and the one after it, and the one after that. Werner nods slowly. This is why they'll win the war, he says, not bitterly, just a fact. Outside, another bomber stream passes overhead, real fortresses, not captured ones. The sound rolls over Richlin like distant thunder, a reminder that while this one sits silent, its brothers on the sky. The Germans captured a fortress, but in the end, it only confirmed what they already feared. Spring 1945, Germany. The war is almost over. Cities lie in ruins, rail lines twisted, factories burned out shells. And still, the sound comes, that deep, steady thunder rolling over a broken nation. The Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress flies above, not as a lone machine, but as a symbol of everything Germany could no longer match. The Luftwaffe that once boasted supremacy over Europe is now a remnant. Fuel tanks are empty. Airfields are cratered. A handful of fighters struggle into the sky, often only to fall minutes later against overwhelming numbers. The captured fortress at Luftwaffe test fields has long been retired. It taught everything it could, and none of it was enough. For the Germans, the fortress came to represent inevitability. Not just a bomber, but the weight of American industry, logistics, and willpower. For Allied crews, it became something else entirely. A steel chariot, a home in the sky. A machine that could take brutal punishment and keep its promise to bring them home. A tail gunner once wrote in his journal, "If we go down, it'll be because they built a bullet that can finally stop us." Most of the time, the fortress outlasted the storm. When the Allies finally advance across the Rhine, the bomber formations still fly overhead, hammering what remains of German industry and transportation. Each formation is a reminder. This was not a war the Reich could win with skill alone. It was a war of endurance. In Richlin, the captured B-17 stands stripped of its markings. A silent monument to a war Germany fought but could not outbuild. The fortress was never just a plane. It was America's message to the world. We can reach you, we can outlast you, and we will not stop. May 1945, Europe. The guns have fallen silent. The Reich has collapsed. Across Germany, the skies that once echoed with dogfights now carry only the distant hum of supply planes. But for years, one sound defined the war over Europe, the steady, thunderous heartbeat of the Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress. The Luftwaffe captured a fortress, studied it, flew it, and respected it. Their test pilots admitted what their frontline pilots already knew: this bomber was unlike anything they had ever faced. It wasn't elegant, it wasn't graceful, it was relentless. The B-17 represented more than firepower. It was a machine built on the shoulders of an entire nation's industry, forged in factories, fueled by resources, flown by ordinary men tasked with extraordinary missions. Its armor, guns, and rugged design told a simple story. It wasn't built to be perfect. It was built to survive. For the Luftwaffe, the fortress exposed the limits of bravery against mass production. Courage could down a plane, but courage alone couldn't stop 1,000 more. For the civilians who lived beneath its shadow, it was both terror and inevitability, a symbol of a war they could not escape. For the crews who flew inside it, it was a fortress in the sky, a steel companion that got them home more often than it didn't. Even decades after the war, the image endures. A formation of B-17s cutting across the sky in tight, unwavering lines, guns out, engines roaring unbroken. The Luftwaffe may have captured a single fortress, but in truth, the fortress captured something far greater, the future of air warfare itself. High voltage, we've never faced anything like it, a Luftwaffe officer once said. And in that simple line lies the story of an entire war fought above the clouds. If this story hit you the way it hit me, subscribe to the channel. These voices deserve to be remembered, and we'll keep bringing them to life.